Right. Good afternoon, everybody. If you're ready, we're going to start this afternoon's the first session of this afternoon, which is on archaeology and well-being. I'm really not going to say any more because we've got three amazing presentations we've got to get through, and then we'll come back for a Q&A session at the end. So first of all, what I'd like to do is invite Aidan Phillips, Ben Donnelly-Symes, Nadia Norman and Sarah Scott to come up to talk to us about their project in Northamptonshire. You ready, the four of you? I will. There you go. Operation Phoenix. Brilliant. Could I just ask you all try and talk into the microphone and just be aware that we do have people online. So there's your camera.
Good afternoon. Yes, so I've come to talk to you a little bit about a project that I came up with. I work fairly obviously in the fire service full time, have done since 1987. And sometimes we experience some fairly nasty scenes. And I admired somebody called Richard Osgood and Operation Nightingale. And I'm an amateur archaeologist myself, and basically reached out to Richard. Richard put me in touch with Dickie, and I also contacted some other people, and with the idea that we could use archaeology as a way of helping people in the blue light community who are dealing with stresses of work and life. Last year, I had permission from Northampton Fire and my Assistant Chief Fire Officer, Rob Porter, to set up and run a pilot. Well, actually, it was October 22, wasn't it? And with these lovely people and their support, and Dickie, we set up and ran a fantastic event that ran for the year. We staged lots of different opportunities, gave people opportunities and activities to be involved with, which took them out of their comfort zone, but in a safe environment. And also, change the slide, get slicker, sorry. You probably notice I'm not used to public speaking, but I'm better at shouting at people. So we're in year 2, just about to start next month. Is it still a slide change again? I think. And I'm petering out now, but I will hand over. Who's next? Ben? Ben's next. Ben.
Hi, I'm Ben. So I'm the curator at the Northamptonshire Archaeological Resource Centre, which is the county's archaeological archive repository. And Aidan invited us to be part of the project. So we kind of all agreed that archives are often forgotten on projects like this. So we wanted to kind of embed archaeological archives within the project and the participants an opportunity to handle lots and lots of archaeological material. So at the very when we initiated it, our site and Stannick Lakes, where Nadia works, they're only about 4 or 5 miles away from each other along the same stretch of the River Nen. And you can walk between the two. So we decided to do a walk-in tour around Stannick Lakes, then went across the Nen Valley, stopped at Greg's at Rushden Lakes, and then went on to where I work at Chester House Estate and the Northants Ark. And through that, we did a search of the historic environment record and was pointing out all of the different sites so that the participants would kind of get an understanding of the historic landscape that they're working in. And then we decided to do some archive sessions. So we had 2 sessions a month for 5 months. And that included sessions on working with Roman pottery. And we had the Roman pottery specialist from Mola come in and give an in-kind contribution of providing training of like kind of basics of dating and determining form of pots. We did a session, which was probably the most successful session we did in the Ark, which was we have a project with our volunteers assessing all of our human remains, determining the age, the sex, the height, any pathologies. And we got the folks from the fire service to work with our volunteers on that project. And by the end of the day, they could do the bits of like aging and determining the height. And that was a day they got loads out of, because when Sarah will come onto it, we're excavating a Roman cemetery. So we thought it was useful to give this in advance. We also did an introduction with the Portable Antiquities Scheme. So if they ever found anything, because the hope was that this would kind of inspire them to go on and do other research. So our Finds Liaison Officer, Ellie, she came and did a session. And then also Charlotte, our Historic Environment Record Officer, she did a whole session on HERs, what they are, and we did the classic thing that people do with HERs, is find your house and what's underneath it. And one of them, the field that was opposite his house as he was growing up, that now has a McDonald's on it, had an Iron Age farmstead, and it completely kind of changed his understanding of where he actually lived, which was really, really nice. So that was my little bit. On to Nadia.
Thank you. Which button do I press? There we go. I'm Nadia. I'm a heritage coordinator at Stannet Lakes. We are in a unique position at Stannet Lakes because although we are also a nature reserve and a very popular family attraction, we also have 5,000 years of heritage on site. And we were in a very opportunistic position to be able to work with Operation Phoenix alongside our own heritage projects that we already had going on. So it was for us a real hands-on opportunity for them to very much like the archives at the Ark, is to not just learn about it through listening to people, but to actually craft things and be a part of our projects. So as Ben mentioned, we started off with an area walk, trying to get an understanding of the landscape archaeology and the heritage of the site. And then also moved on to them being very, very helpful in helping us achieve some of our own project aims. Outdoor activities to create some of these legacy builds that we are currently doing. I think it was very popular, but certainly from the comments that came back from the participants, to be able to learn traditional tools and building techniques. We had a wonderful season with fantastic weather at the Roundhouse, doing the willow weave hurdles for the walls and the daubing. Although I think by the end of daubing, everyone had enough of that activity. It's all right for a day, but when that drags on to a few weeks, it gets a bit much. And with our experimental and our experiential builds, we are 2 years into a project to create some Bronze Age logboats using only bronze tools, and the Operation Phoenix team and the guys and girls that were on that team were absolutely key for us to hit some of their milestones. And again, being able to involve them with our volunteers, our heritage volunteers, to work alongside and together was a really good opportunity to skill share those traditional craft skills. We also were able to offer them a traditional crafts day in the form of a blacksmithing course, which was very popular and enjoyed by all. And some of the comments that really stuck out for us in the first round of the feedback, gaining a real sense of achievement and being able to see a project through from beginning to end. Found myself lost in the work and taught myself perseverance. A really satisfying day, enjoying the tools and the progress that was made, and the learning of new skills, giving people the ability to have some time to themselves. And I think as part of this project and what we're hoping to continue going forward on our offer from Stannet Lakes is that green space, that nature, that being outside, and the opportunity for them to delve into some of the projects that we continue to do today.
Thank you. I'm Sarah Scott from the University of Leicester. So the University of Leicester is working in partnership with North Northampton Council with a particular focus on the Chester House estate. So we're running a collaborative excavation at Chester Field School. Before I talk about just a little bit about that, I just want to say that, and I think Aidan might have skipped the fact that he's actually a really experienced archaeologist. And actually, but the reason this whole project started, I think we bumped into each other. There was some kind of accidental. But actually, you worked with Earthlingborough Archaeological Society, so kind of leading all kinds of activities. And actually, what he came to us with was a really holistic and to be honest, vision. It was visionary, actually, idea for what might be achieved, and already had in his mind, because he really living in the area, knew obviously all of the amazing things that were happening at Stanwick Lakes and at Chester House. So that was all a lot of that was fully formed. So our job was really just to work out how we could help to make that happen. With a project like this, there are lots of moving parts that these kinds of projects need agreements in place, and that was something that was important to the fire service. And so one of the things universities can really help with in these kind of projects is putting those things in place, putting in place the kind of ethics approvals, and we're working really closely with Dickie, who's I think speaking tomorrow, but to put together the kind of research project as well. So the evaluation and ethics, but also really helping and supporting with thinking about how we could embed and ensure the sustainability of this project, because it's so important. I think with this kind of initiative, what if someone really develops a passion? How are you going to be able to get someone to continue that? I think there's an ethical kind of moral responsibility to really think about that before you initiate these kinds of interventions. And I think because of our existing kind of collaborative approach, so we're already working together on other projects, and we were able to think really holistically about how we might embed Operation Phoenix and Aidan's vision within the things that we're doing. And I think that is what we're working on now. We want to become business as usual, thinking really creatively about how we can do that. Obviously, universities can leverage all kinds of resource, and I think that is really important. There's expertise in psychology, health sciences, which is incredibly valuable for these kinds of projects. So I think just to finish my section, one of the great things is we're running a collaborative field school at the Chester House estate. So it's great to be able to have Aidan and the fire service team as part of our team, working alongside our students, but also volunteers. So they're very much part of the project. And the Stanwick team actually were able to come and dig on occasion as well, which is fantastic. The kind of what if, what next is also something we're able to help with. And noted that Aidan is now a student at the University of Leicester, so he's able to kind of pursue his interests with us as well.
Thank you. So yeah, it worked last year. It seems to have been well received. Dickie's work with the research has shown some really positive outcomes, and I'm hoping to engage next year as well, and embed that research element going forward so that we can improve. And then my vision has always been that it's a blue light thing, not confined to Northamptonshire. So that includes, I don't know, any blue light worker who would be my vision. And how we do that, I have no idea. It's a thing of scale. And yeah, but it's been an absolute pleasure to work with these wonderful people. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And quick turnaround now for our second presentation, which is the Rendlesham Revealed, a community archaeology project. And we have three speakers for you now: Faye Minter and Alice DeLeo from Sussex County Council Archaeological Service, and Claire Andrade from Suffolk Mind. I'll get it right, please.
Thank you. You're right, guys. Yes. Right, we're good to go. Hold on, how's it work? We're probably good to go. My name's Faye Minter, and I work for Suffolk County Council Archaeological Service, where I'm the Archaeology, Archives and Projects Manager. And as part of that role, I've been the manager of the Rendlesham Revealed project, which is the project that we're focusing on today. So first of all, I'm going to give you a very brief overview of the sort of archaeological reasons for that project. And then Alice, our project delivery officer, will summarise the project's community engagement before handing over to Claire from Suffolk Mind, who's going to present some of the case studies from working with the clients from that organisation. So Rendlesham Revealed is a 4-year community archaeology project investigating early medieval or Anglo-Saxon life through the archaeology at the site at Rendlesham and down the Deben Valley in southeast Suffolk. So it's funded by the National Lottery Heritage Fund, which is always a mouthful. And they gave us just over 500,000 in a grant. And we also have contributions from smaller organisations such as CBA East and Suffolk Institute of Archaeology and History. It's probably worth mentioning at this point that the Rendlesham project, Rendlesham Revealed, is a continuation of archaeological work and research at Rendlesham, which started with myself back in 2008. So this is a project that has been going since then, and the latest version of it, the community project, is really been a success due to the support that we've had from all of the partners that you can see there on the screen. That's too many to go through, and also from the landowners and the farmers, and we're extremely grateful for everybody that's helped with the project, their help and their involvement. So very briefly, just about the archaeology. The site is located at Rendlesham, which is 6 kilometres upriver from the princely burial ground site at Sutton Hoo that you probably will have heard of. Rendlesham is named in documentary sources by Bede, the monk, as a vicus regius or royal settlement, and the site has a 5th century settlement and associated cemetery. And then by the late 6th and 7th century, it grows to over 50 hectares, which is the largest site of its kind of this period known in England. The elite activity occurs on a promontory, and we have a royal compound there where the kings of East Anglia would have stayed when they visited East Anglia. So you can see here on this slide a drone shot of the foundations of one of the monumental halls, which has been excavated by volunteers back in 2022. So for over 150 years, from the late 6th to the 8th centuries, Rendlesham was a core territory of East Anglian royal power, and it's one of the most important places in East Anglia at this time, and the site is of international significance, which is why it was so important to us to be able to open this site out to people in the local community, and especially some of our target groups that Alice and Claire are going to take you through now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Faye. So just briefly about the community involvement. So the Rendlesham Reveal project has 3 main activity strands: archaeological fieldwork and post-excavation, which was the main effort, experimental archaeology, and interpretation and digital access. The project aimed to further understand the archaeology, engage and empower the community through training in new skills, and promoting health, well-being and inclusion. We used a model where the fieldwork was undertaken by volunteers under the professional guidance of a small team coordinated by Suffolk County Council Archaeological Service, and with academic advice from Professor Christopher Scull, with expertise from contractors and project partners to deliver these activities. Over 600 volunteers have been involved across all of the project activities. And in addition to engaging the general public and local societies, we also proactively engage with young people and people who would not normally have the opportunity to take part in archaeology. This involved 2 local primary schools, young people aged 13 to 16 via Suffolk family carers who care for a family member who suffer either physical or mental health illnesses, and adults via Suffolk Minds Wave Service who have been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder and PTSD, which Claire will talk about later. We found the key to successfully engaging these groups was consultation early on in the project, so we could meet their needs and address barriers such as providing transport and accommodation. Their experience on site was not manufactured. Everybody received hands-on training in different aspects of the archaeological process, and their skills were recorded in Badger Archaeology Skills Passports. We measured impact using light touch evaluation, using wellbeing umbrellas, traditional questionnaires, and group feedback sessions. And on the screen is a table showing the wellbeing improvement percentage before versus after the activity. And this shows a positive improvement year on year. In the feedback sessions and questionnaires, this identified various reasons, such as being treated as part of the team, making a meaningful contribution to research, and being given a choice to pursue which activity they enjoyed the most. And we saw the most impact with volunteers who returned over multiple years. So primary school children returning each year showed visible improvements in their communication and social skills. Several clients from Suffolk Mind returned each year, which reinforced the message that their time and work was valued. And for the Suffolk family carers, we organised a 3-day residential each year, and this concentrated experience enabled them to gain important life skills and improve confidence. So now I just wanted to share a 2-minute video with you all, which the young people from Suffolk family carers have made entirely themselves about their experience at the excavations, and then I'll hand over to Claire to talk about Suffolk Mind.
If you could describe this experience in one sentence, what would it be?
The best, amazing.
I would say an amazing opportunity.
How did you feel before arriving here versus how do you feel now?
When I came here at first, I was a bit nervous, jittery. Yeah, I saw some familiar faces, but it was 2 new people joining, and now I feel like I've had probably one of the best 2-3 days away from anyone, and then a while now.
To start off with, I was a bit nervous, really excited to do something because it's obviously not everyone has the opportunity to do something like this. And I think after, I'm really pleased with myself and what I've been able to do. And yeah, just really happy, really.
First, I was really nervous because I was new, and now I got to know. How did you feel before arriving here versus how you feel now?
Nervous, excited, I'm sugar excited.
I was very excited for this trip, and right now I'm tired.
What have you learned?
I have learned that it is so much easier to make friends and to find bonds where someone's already done the hard work for you.
I've learned that, or how, archaeologists sort of do their job in different ways. They can find different materials from long time ago.
From centuries ago.
How they can tell how long a bone has been around.
What have you enjoyed the most?
I enjoyed digging. I found some really cool stuff.
The excavation, I found 2 entire bones. 11 ribs total.
2 entire bones?
And 11 ribs total. That's one too many ribs.
Thank you, and I'll now hand over to Claire.
Yeah, thank you, Aidan, for demonstrating that you're not very into this either, because I'm not either. So I hope that I'll get the right slides. So let's forget. Oh, there we go. Yeah, so I'm Claire, and I'm from Suffolk Mind, and I work for a personality disorder service. So we have most of the time about 800 people on our waiting list across Suffolk who have come in from various resources, various referral pathways, and they can self-refer. But many of them have borderline personality disorder or emotionally unstable personality disorder, which some of you might know is pretty much the same, or complex PTSD. But then they also have various other diagnoses or difficulties as well that they might be struggling with, or that might make it more challenging, like ADHD, autistic spectrum disorder, and significant trauma is very common in this group of people that we are working with. It's a year-long program when they come to us. So I teach them psychological education. My background is psychology. And they have 26 core programs relating to those diagnoses as they progress through the year. And they are 18 plus. So we have had people as young as 18. That's very common. We've had people as old as 74. It's the oldest person that we've had. And I have been doing that for the last 8 years. So we'll see if this is the right button. No, it's the wrong one. There we go. So I'm going to explain briefly personality disorder or borderline personality disorder or emotionally unstable personality disorder. Not everybody loves that label either. I've got on the screen here something from the National Centre of Biotechnical Information. It is 2017, but it's very relevant because I don't really think that the situation has changed very much. So personality disorder is a serious mental health condition affecting up to 52% of psychiatric outpatients and 70% of inpatients and forensic patients, so those who might be in prison with various behaviours. Given the significant public health implications associated with this, including extensive use of healthcare resources, so high intensity users, high rates of suicide and reduced life expectancy, effective treatment is a priority. So that's why I do this job, for that last statement, because it is, it's seen as long and enduring, and it has a significant impact on someone's life throughout their life. So what is it? In a short space of time, I've tried to explain it. So if you imagine a pendulum, when people say they have borderline personality disorder, it doesn't mean that they nearly have it, which a lot of people sometimes think. It means that throughout the day, throughout the week, people's emotions are swinging right into the borderline of psychosis or over into, and right over into the borderline of neurosis, which is quite an old word, or into. And if you imagine that daily, throughout the day, that's exhausting, terrifying, and very difficult to kind of run your life and function sometimes when that's what's happening. And there are various reasons why that will develop in a person, but we haven't got time to go into that today. So that will lead them to have, irrational thoughts, paranoia, hallucinations, delusions, and this is, severely distressing for somebody. Anxiety, low self-esteem, negative emotions, irritability, anger, poor response to stress, and to interpret everyday situations as a threat. And they sound on paper like, that's just kind of words, isn't it, that I'm telling you? But when you're experiencing that level of fear and anxiety up and down daily, really overwhelming, intense emotions, it's really difficult. I think daily how brave the people I work with are, really. So the causes are genetic and biological, that nature, nurture. Some people, with a predisposition coupled with negative environment, very, very often trauma, not always, but very often. Complex PTSD can also be derived from prolonged childhood trauma or any other kind of trauma. Affecting how someone thinks, feels and perceives and relates to others. So if your brain has decided the world is scary, everything you do is a reaction to that. So it's very difficult for you to lead a normal conversation, for example, or maybe just go to the shop. So I just want to give a sense of what that's like for someone, for those of you who might not know. So I met Alice and Faye, and that was the best thing ever. And really just instantly thought this would be an amazing thing to do. We're lucky enough to have the Reddish and Reveal project on our doorstep. And these people who don't have high self-esteem at all. They really don't think that anybody wants them. Genuinely, a lot of our clients are really quite severe personality disorder and complex PTSD. And their experience of life is that people don't want them. They are really low down when it comes to how they perceive themselves. So this is how they described being on the project. So the people that I'm describing, the case studies, have been really amazing in letting us do this, letting us show photographs of them and letting us use their name. So Doug, he has diagnosis of ADHD, BPD, and post-traumatic stress. He was in the forces originally. And he said, if you are suffering from the conflicting traits of ADHD and BPD, borderline personality disorder, that needle is flickering, smashing from either side of the dial and not settling on anything. And he's describing that pendulum to a T, really. It's never settling on anything. But when you get into the trench, into the archaeology trench, you're told this is your job, this is your work. That needle settles in the middle, that stable middle, which most of us kind of bob around in. and you're focused on what you're supposed to be doing with an end result. And he said, if I can ever talk to anyone about how much it's changed my life, I will talk forever. He has gone on to do other archaeological projects. I don't think he's stopped working on them, has he? Since about the last 2 years. I don't think he left site very much. No. And he is a changed man. His condition was life-threatening, so it is not currently. So, Nev said, when I joined Waves, I wouldn't say boo to anyone. He was one of my clients in the area that I cover, and that was very true. I would hardly leave the house. The first day we went to Rendlesham was my favourite day because it got me hooked. We wanted to stay. It's brought us back to earth, just the calming nature of doing it and the history behind it. He's now training with Can Connect to be a lived experience peer support worker. He cried when he realised that people weren't joking. They actually did want him to share his lived experience. Client A wants to be anonymous, which is completely fine. It's very small. I needed my glasses. So this is a person who really struggled to engage. So every time she would be on the phone with us in a one-to-one session, she would just scream. And so we disengaged that kind of session because it wasn't productive. And so the first time I met her as a member of that team, we met in a field doing this project. And that helped for various reasons. And she came to pretty much every single one, I think. And one of the most defining moments was the field walk. We were literally in the field, and that's the first time she started to speak with words and explain why she screamed. She didn't have to because we were doing archaeology. We weren't doing anything relating to that. But she did, and it was super useful that she did. And when we were in the Anthropology Museum at Cambridge University linking this project, she opened up about her background because she was looking at something to do with evolution. So it really enabled me to understand her and to support her better. And lastly, client A. Oh, still client A, sorry. She said, the first year I learned about soil samples and I helped get some. I also got to take part in the first dig, which I really enjoyed and got to do plenty of. I learned it's possible to be involved in something like this and really appreciate being included. Hope to help some more in the future. My wishes were granted the last day and human remains were found. It's so special that I got to be part of something so sacred. I'll never forget it. Human remains were her priority. So yeah, she was really happy. And I think I've probably overrun time. So I'd really like to say thank you to Faye and Alice, because if it wasn't for them and all the other funders, if it wasn't for this project, our clients would never have got to do this because they paid all the expenses for them to go there. Most of them are on some kind of benefit. They just would not have been able to access it. So it's absolutely unbelievable. And we're working now on going forward and doing some more stuff. So joint funding. So that's it. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you very much. And very swiftly on, we're going to go on to our final presentation now, which is Recovering the Fallen, How Searching for the Dead Inspires Life for the Living. And I'm delighted to welcome Richard Osgood onto the stage and Rosanna Price.
I have never done this before, so this is going to be a journey of discovery for all of us. I'm Rosanna. I'm the engagement manager at Cotswold Archaeology. I handle all their social media. I do their websites. I do all their press and publicity. I've been with them for about 10 years now. And I also get the privilege of going out on some of their community projects, like the one we're going to talk about today. So I hope you can see this. This is a B-17 Flying Fortress. It is a World War II US heavy bomber used mainly for daytime bombing raids over occupied Europe. They made about 13,000 of these over the course of the 1930s and 40s. They were stationed primarily in Eastern England for sort of obvious tactical and logistical reasons. There are 10 crewing positions on a B-17. They are all deadly. The return rate, oh yeah, good, well done, thanks. The return rate for a crew on a B-17 was less than 50%. Less than 50%. So that's fascinating, that's great, Rosanna. Nice bit of aviation heritage. What's it got to do with wellbeing? Well, we went out into the field as Cotswold Archaeology last autumn with a volunteer team from Cranfield Crick Unit. with the Op Nightingale veterans and serving US military. We went to recover 3 unaccounted for airmen from a B-17 crash in a field. 2 people miraculously survived that crash, and I'd be delighted if you asked me later to tell their incredible stories. But yeah, sadly, 8 guys didn't return. 5 were accounted for at the time in 1944, but 3 young men were never found. We were doing this for the DPAA, which is the US Department of Defense's Department for Prisoners of War Missing in Action Accounting Agency. Thank you. I peaked, that's it. They have missions across the world. They are looking to recover and repatriate the remains of conflict casualties right back to the Second World War, take them back to the US. That's the embodiment of No Man Left Behind. This, from the very beginning, we wanted to be a volunteer-orientated project. We made sure that we included the local community because they have a phenomenal wealth of knowledge about the site and really respect it as a grave site as well. DPAA projects are very maths heavy, so we were able to clearly delineate the roles on site so that our volunteers could rotate in and out of tasks they felt were going to mentally and physically bring them the most value and rehabilitation. We had a social prescribing mindset, so we tried to make sure we were maximising opportunities for volunteers to learn new skills, make friends and connections, engage with the physicality of archaeology where possible, and to benefit from being in an outdoor environment and just engaging with heritage more generally. And we provided clear mental health first aid support so that people knew who to go to if they had any issues arising from what is an emotionally evocative type of project. Okay, Rich is going to talk about Operation Nightingale proper, and I'd like to focus on the community outcomes of this one. The American invaders, as they were known, became integral part of local communities. These villagers, they would count the planes out when they went in the morning, they would count them all back when they came in at night, and if a crew didn't return, it really affected them. Those feelings are still very much in evidence today. We quickly caught on to the fact that this was the village's plane crash, and this is the village's gravesite. I would get around 5 to 10 unexpected visits a day over the course of 5 weeks, people bringing me their knowledge, their research, bits of plane that they had, and looking for information and updates from us. They were really keen to support us in any way they could. This is quite a complex site to get the security right on. It's a vast debris field. It's an open arable landscape. They were key to helping us because they were keeping a lookout of who was wandering around, what they were doing. And they were also coming up with unique stories to tell those they felt were unsafe to know we were looking for a plane crash, including my favourite, which is telling them we were searching for a water main when we were clearly hand-sieving soil quite laboriously. It was a really good demonstration of how including and engaging communities can, rather than deflecting and denying them, can help promote for them a sense of ownership and place and bring tangible benefits to the projects themselves. You will always gain and learn more from engaging your community than you even give to them. Okay, so these are amazing projects that have real impact and poignancy because we're recovering modern human remains, something we don't often get to do in our kind of archaeology. But there are wider community outcomes, and I'm working with the communities and villages at the moment to help support and guide them with ongoing initiatives for wellbeing and heritage more generally. We've also got the DPAA now. It's the first time they've done a project like this, really, with this many volunteers of this kind. And they've updated their reporting to include a community research element so that they can start seeing community liaison as a two-way street and not just them taking information. We've increased our connections with the local airfield museums and the RAF bases, so created new outreach opportunities with them. And one thing that really came out of these is that, oh, my mouth is so dry. Sorry, guys. One thing that really came out of this project was organically, we got a focus on older people, so 80 years plus in age. And this chap on the right, Richard, he's helping us do oral histories. He's the three in the middle of the image. They remember the crash site from 1944. He's recording their memories from the time before they're lost. They're quite open about that. You know, before I die, I want to get this recorded. It's giving them all a sense of purpose and a sense of value. We've also managed to get the housebound included in this so that they can contribute to our research, and it's combating loneliness for them, and it's adding worth and value to their lives. We've got a memorial service coming up for the 80-year commemoration of the crash, and in attendance is going to be the full dig team, members of the local community. We're going to have the military there, and we're also going to have the family and friends. Oh, you star, thanks so much. The family and friends. What a great guy. That's true outreach.
You're showing me up, you are.
You're going to be a gentleman. That's the only reason I brought him. We've got an 80 years memorial coming up where we're going to have the local community, the military, the full dig team, and friends and family of the guys who are accounted for and unaccounted for from the crash. They're coming over from America. So there's an ongoing legacy of connection and friendship, not just between and within these individual communities, but actually across the Atlantic. And if you look at this photo here, you'll see the young red-haired lady. She is the granddaughter of one of the guys who survived that crash. And she's just met for the first time the older chap she's got her arm around, who witnessed the crash when it happened in 1944. Over to you.
So I'm going to speak a little bit about the military element, the Operation Nightingale, and it struck me that most obvious archaeological site you can take traumatized veterans to would be one where there was a catastrophic experience in the Second World War where a lot of people died. Struck me as totally counterintuitive, but bizarrely, and I think the Rendlesham thing struck that for me, actually the finding of human remains works quite well. And from an archaeological point of view, the participants, the veterans, recognize a lot of the artifacts, actually a lot better than the archaeologists, because that's part of their tribal narrative. They recognize components of military equipment. They'll recognize the ordnance and what that can tell us in its own particular story. So actually working on military crash sites with fatalities, sounds strange, works incredibly well from a well-being point of view, from an Op Nightingale thing. And that's something we've worked out over a few years of doing this now. And another thing I've worked out, there's a series of guidance called the AMFRA guidelines, which is set up to look at these well-being projects largely from a military perspective. We follow these things as to how you should set these projects up and meet people beforehand. We scrutinize the applications. This was heavily oversubscribed to take part in this particular program, and who would be the most suitable to be on this. So it's looked at. We brought Dickie in because we couldn't get anyone better. We brought Dickie in to do some of the assessment work and look at the efficacy and get some results out of this as well. And something we've learnt out over the years, that actually a board soldier is a very dangerous thing and inventive. So we want to keep things happening in the evenings. Each people have 2 people in a room, just to make sure they're looked after, and the Americans paid for all of this. But we wanted to make sure we did things that were culturally associated with the program, with the work we're doing. And so every evening we did something with them. We're not going to tell you which particular airframe this is, because the Americans are still chatting with the families involved and doing all the kind of post-excavation work. But it's safe to say it's one that came down in East Anglia. That doesn't really rule out very many. It was in Suffolk, so inevitably Doug was there, given his interest sparked by Rendlesham. So we put the team together. First evening, our mixture of British and American service personnel and veterans all buddied up with the forensics team and the archaeologists. And we went to the site of the bomb group, the memorial to the particular plane. If you've ever seen the film 12 O'Clock High, some of you may have done, it's a Gregory Peck movie. It's a very good film. It starts off with an old chap going back to these runways that are now in arable fields and trying to picture and remember those scenes of the B-17s roaring off along the runways. Well, we sort of did our own 21st century version of that. And the concrete you can see on the right is where our aircraft took off from on the day of its crash. So took off from there and never came back. So we went back and had a look at that. And another evening we went to Rougham, We went to the air traffic control tower, which was filled with memorabilia about the American 8th Air Force. In fact, there's a bit of the airframe we were looking at was in there. And that was incredibly evocative because there were photographs of the young men and the women that lived there at the time. And it brings back that story of people, which is what, after all, archaeology is about. So we were looking at the people, the stories, and putting ourselves back in those memories of the 1940s. Now, I think we've all learned probably through doing archaeology, and if not, certainly through watching Time Team, that you can't do archaeology without a pub. So, the Swan at Lavenham. If you've never been to Lavenham, go, because it's basically a half-timbered village. It features in Harry Potter for those of a certain age, but it's a gorgeous pub. If you go into the pub, there's a Toby jug, which features in 12 O'Clock High. It is also in, I believe, Masters of the Air, the new TV series, but it's covered in graffiti, technically a heritage crime, but done by the 8th Air Force in the 1940s. And so therefore, that's a really powerful thing for those, especially for the Americans in our team, to go, the young American airmen and women, to go and see where their military forebears had been and defiled some years before. American air bases are very different to the British. So another evening, we went to RAF Mildenhall, and you go into the American air base, very polite gate guards, always very professionally polite. You go and order yourself a burger, pay for it in dollars. You watch what everybody is watching baseball on huge screens, drinking rubbish beer. And then you go to the cinema. Imagine a British base with a cinema in it. Anyway, this has got a cinema in where we watch Memphis Belle. Really, really setting you in a perfect environment for where we're working. Now, of course, we had a specific goal on our project. That's to recover potentially evidence for the 3 young airmen that were never recovered. I'm not going to go into any details, but we had one or 2 elements on this project that really did make it very powerful about what we were meant to be doing that time. And so you notice the atmosphere changed on some of the discoveries, and you have to have a flexibility to try and kind of lighten the mood maybe a little bit to deal with it. And my methodology was to get people all in inappropriate t-shirts that they'd all bought in the cafe at Rougham Air Museum. So they're all wearing Bomber Nose Art t-shirts, a mixture of British and American participants, except somebody in a Red Bull t-shirt I can see.
Yeah, before someone thinks that's classic 1940s nose art.
so we did that just as a kind of a thing to maybe take our minds off a little bit of the feeling on what we were finding on site as a collective. But we couldn't get away from the fact that we did want to remember the 8 guys that were killed on the crash. 5 of them are buried in Madingley Cemetery in Cambridge. The 3 missing that we were trying to find out about are commemorated on the wall of the missing. This was the real goal of the project, and this project will keep going. Each evening, they have a flag folding ceremony at Madingley Cemetery where they lower the stars and stripes, and our dig team did that at the end of each Friday. So those that collective of Americans are part of the dig team. You've also got the capacity to deal with people not being able to turn up. We overcater, a bit like an airline, we overcater for people coming onto the site, knowing that people will drop out for whatever reason before they come on site. There'll be a medical reason or whatever. So we have a way of trying to involve those people still, whether it be remotely. You can keep them on the group Facebook page and talking about what we found, and in a closed environment, so you can keep it secret still. But you can also get things like this done. So this was the airframe. I've blotted out which one it is, but that's a model made by one of our participants who couldn't come. He made this model of the airframe, which will go to the local church, whose windows have been blown out by the air crash in the 1940s. And that formed part of the commemorative elements, and parts of the B-7 airframe will ultimately end there and on the memorial as part of the commemorating component, to make sure that there is a legacy for commemoration as well as for the participants as well. It's very difficult to see much about this slide. This is taken from Dickie's assessment of the work. The scales were very good. We had improvements in most of the elements we were trying to measure. From my point of view, the key one was that as we're going to go back and do another site this year, every single participant wanted to come back. The only 2 that aren't coming back are the ones that they're still in the military, and they've been told they've got other day jobs they have to do, but we'll get other downgraded military people involved. So it's a really key thing from my point of view that once you raise aspiration and ambition and enjoyment, you've got to keep it going as much as you possibly can. I think that's probably it from me. There is also a book out. The first 10 years of the project, you can pick it up if you've got cash on you. 20 quid, all money to military charity. Sorry, Neil.
Okay, there's quite a lot of people. Could everyone who's spoken come up to the stage, please? Because I'm going to try and field some questions for you all. So if you've got questions, no, I'm happy. I'll run. I've got a roving microphone that I'm going to bring round to you. Could you, when you ask your question, could you say who you're addressing it to on the stage, please? It's everybody. You're going to give us a calendar, rather a lot of them. Okay. So if you lot are all right. Can I remember to keep talking to the camera at the back? I'm going to take this microphone, and if you could use this microphone to respond on, that'd be great. So, Shannon first.
Hello. Yeah, I've got two questions, sorry, and they're sort of for two different people. So one for, I suppose, Faye and Alice, and then one for Richard. The two things, and you mentioned these things. So being oversubscribed is one thing. So you talked about the number of volunteers you had at Rendlesham, hundreds. So in terms of oversubscribed, how you manage the expectation of that over the course of the project, because I'm assuming you had to say no to some people potentially, although that's a huge number, so maybe you didn't, but also the legacy that you're talking about, Richard, as well, in that we all know that community projects are wonderful, but that legacy and that commitment to keeping in touch with that community once that project, so the Rendlesham project, once that's done, keeping in touch with that community. And obviously, Richard, for Op Nightingale, you've got a community, so you've got a legacy there, but all the other people involved in the village, what's the promise to keep them connected to what's going on?
Okay, shall I just, oversubscribed? Yes, it's very oversubscribed. People love digging archaeology. And so we had long waiting lists. So if people cancelled, we slotted new people in. But because we had several different streams of activity for the project over the 4 years, it wasn't just excavation. We had experimental archaeology and lots of other things, field walking, geophysics. If somebody couldn't come as many days as they'd like to, say on the excavation, we say, but we are doing field walking. And so there was, in most cases, some other part of the project that they could join. So they were still in it. And we also did weekly blogs and sort of digital things to try and allow people to keep up to date, even if they couldn't come to site for the entire time and things like that. So that did work quite well. But you're right, you'll sort of become a victim of your own success because people enjoy it. So they tell their friends and family, and then more and more people come. Most of the people did come from the immediate area and from East Anglia, but we did have people coming from Canada and all over the place. And I suppose if we had more funding to carry on digging at Rendlesham indefinitely, we would just get more and more people wanting to come. So this is an issue, I should think, that most community projects may encounter, that they would be oversubscribed. And I think we had to always bear in mind that just putting more and more people in isn't necessarily a good idea, because that will affect the quality of the experience for the people on the site. So you do need to have enough staff, enough toilets, you can't just up the numbers. So yeah, that is something we did have to deal with. I'm rambling. What was the rest of the question?
Can I add
yes,
to your answer? So to manage the large number of people who are interested from the general public, we gave blocks of time. So we did 4 days, 2 days, and then 1 day on a Saturday. So people could fit it in around their commitments and could choose how much time they wanted to invest in volunteering. And then for the priority groups, for the Suffolk Family Carers, Suffolk Mind and schools, we made sure to book them in first. So we gave them the amount of time that they actually wanted. So we made sure to prioritise their time and experience. And then we opened to the public what was left after that, which was still a lot of time. That was perfect.
Good answer.
Okay, so from my point of view, what we try and do is we have to assess the applications to see whether it meets the ethos, what sort of things we need to have to cater for on site. So once that's selected, we do give the people that are unsuccessful the opportunity to go on further excavations. We try and get as much of the information out there as possible so that there's an accessibility component for people that aren't successful. So I'm shameless about getting into British archaeology or current archaeology, getting people like Carenza along and Time Team on some of the projects or Digging for Britain, just to get it out as much as possible. So at least there's an element of seeing the work that we're doing. In terms of a legacy and continuity, you know, we have a Facebook page. I mean, everyone does it. That well, luckily most of our veterans are of an age that they still do Facebook. They're not, you know, young enough to think that's so uncool. We're not doing that. So they're informed about every single thing. They're all going to be at the memorial. They all want to come back for the memorial. You know, people are flying back from the States under their own steam to come and do this sort of thing. In terms of linking them in with the community, that's probably you.
Thanks. Hi. Yeah, we've got quite a few initiatives going on. We've obviously got the memorial, as Richard mentioned, and Richard, not this Richard, doing the oral histories, and he's twinned with the libraries, so he'll be doing that more widely. This is just the beginning. We're also doing schools initiatives to tie in with the right key stage. I don't do schools, so please don't quote Cotswold Archaeology on this, but to tie in with the right relevant areas for the kids. And we will be going out to the RAF bases and using those as points of outreach and engagement for, as Richard said, really years to come with the bits of airframe we've been allowed to keep from the DPAA, so that people can come and see and learn about the site. There'll be a memorial plaque at the site, which the landowner is creating, so people can keep coming back. They already had a yearly service in the church. We've got the bishop coming to do the memorial this year for the 80 years, and they're going to start moving that to the farmland where the crash happened. So there's kind of an ongoing engagement for the community to pick those up and be self-sustaining with them, if that answers.
Right, thank you. Yes.
I've got two questions as well for the first speakers and second speakers. For the first speakers, I just wanted to know, in terms of scaling and spreading all the wonderful work that you've done for Blue Light staff, have you considered sharing the learning with your local NHS provider, primary care mental health provider, or the local integrated care system, the local NHS? And in terms of second speakers, the approaches that you used in terms of carers, young carers, families, and so on, are you building social prescribing referrals into that for the local community participants?
Do you want to go first?
Okay, yeah, sure. Static Lakes go first.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's something we're certainly looking at. We're exploring all options for kind of scalability, but ultimately the aim is to embed, but also potentially to offer similar programs. And you know, because actually Aidan's project has made us rethink how we're all working actually. So thinking really holistically about how we can embed and work with the NHS. So yes, surprise.
And for Rendlesham, we aren't doing social prescribing formally as such. We just knew we had these target groups in mind, and so we reached out to Suffolk Mind, met Claire, which was brilliant, and then we went from there. However, we are seeing this aspect of the Rendlesham outreach as a sort of pilot, and we hope now to move forward and to look into that sort of area with future projects in Suffolk.
With the integrated care board, through the integrated care board, and by obviously then doing sort of this level to support funding. I feel like you're working on an archive wanting to sort of sustain that, and so the ICB, and then obviously they could go through social prescribing if they wanted to. Social prescribing could refer in, but then it's numbers. So it just gets so complicated, doesn't it? Then it's numbers. How many people do you want?
Yeah, it's a capacity issue and a staff issue and a funding issue. We are going to do some work with the clients from Claire's service anyway in Suffolk County Council in our archives on a monthly basis. We're just going to do that anyway. It's not in the Rendlesham project, but we just want to.
We really want to.
So
it's that floodgate, isn't it? So if you open it and you want it to be inclusive, then you can't then shut it. It's so difficult. We have to have the money to sustain that. So I think that the funding, the sustainability, all of these are very complex questions that I think Lorenzo was talking about before. We have to research how you go about that. So but we are. We're talking about presenting to the ICB, aren't we?
Yeah. I think sustainability for probably all of these things. Once the project's over, it was great. Everyone had a great time, whatever. But then, if there's nothing, it's almost that's like the biggest challenge, trying to be sustainable and carry on and trying to build on what you've already done, as it were.
Thank you. Anybody else with a question? Yes, certainly.
Thanks. It's really a question for the Suffolk group again, and that is, I totally get that thing about wanting stuff to continue, but I also wonder to what extent your project has been impacted because NSFT are so bad.
Northern Suffolk Foundation Trust.
Oh yes, we haven't spoken to them. So what happened with Rendlesham was Alice and I, from the beginning, had ideas of, young people and target groups and groups in Suffolk that we felt would really benefit from being able to connect to their heritage and come on site and do some archaeology. And so we just reached out, and Suffolk Mind was one of the groups we reached out to, and that's just really flourished.
Yeah.
So it was just a connection between us as individuals and reaching out to each other to try and make things work. But Claire can say more about the trust, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, the individual staff in the inner city are amazing, and I have worked in partnership with them during COVID, working to support all medical staff for 2 years, as well as doing this project. And they are amazing, but over the years they have been lacking a little bit, and that is, confirmed in their special measures. A lot of the time that's been going on for, I don't know, maybe 15 years, so it's quite that sustainable for some reason. And there isn't any funding, but charities do seem to pick up the slack, and my brain is aware of that. So when I met Alice and Faye, I instantly thought this project would be amazing, but I think it was one of the first things I said to you, wasn't it, that we have no money, we have to budget to the last pencil.
We said no problem.
Yeah, I've never heard that before. So that's how we got to do it. Yeah, you're absolutely right. We would not have even been able to go down to the local beach without, we just wouldn't be able to do it. Yeah. Yes. Do you live in Suffolk?
They don't know.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. Anybody else with one more question?
Yeah, I just had a question. Sorry, thank you. For Richard, obviously the project that you're talking about is a really sensitive project, and you sort of mentioned several times about having to keep details sort of undisclosed. How did you balance that with kind of advertising it to the local community and getting people involved in it? The kind of opposite pressures there to kind of keep things confidential and sensitive, but also reach out and bring people on board?
So I'll do the military bit, you can do the community bit. So from our point of view, all the military guys at the start knew what the mission was. I may be in a fortunate position in that a lot of the military guys get mission. They get what they call OPSEC, op security. So it's a case of they know they're not meant to blab about it. They're not meant to put it all over Facebook and all this side of stuff. And we've had other sites with human remains from the First and Second World Wars. We've never had a challenge with it. So calling out on the page, initially when we did the call to apply, we did say this is what we're wanting to do, this is what you're going to have to do, and that we have an element of you sign up for it. I mean, literally have a sign up page for not disclosing stuff. The photography on site is done by one person, so it's a photographer who will take all the images we need, and he knows exactly what you can and can't do. Inevitably people will take things on their own personal phone, we get that. But they know that they will spoil it not just for them, but for the rest of the group, and ruin any other opportunities if that goes out on Facebook. And we've been incredibly fortunate that they have not abused that ever. I have a no human remains kind of thing for our Facebook page. I'll do a drawing or something like that. We just don't put pictures of human skeletons up these days. So they shouldn't have done anything like that. And touch wood, unless someone's going to tell me otherwise, and you know exactly what we found, then no, we've been pretty good on that.
This is a great question. So the DPAA are very specific about what you can and can't share, and I work very closely with their Office of Comms on this because that became my job. In terms of our team, they were fully aware, volunteering team as well, what the protocol was, what they weren't allowed to say, and the best way of tackling it is to meet them and say, these are the things you can say. Please limit it to this. These are the sort of images you can share. Feel free to share those, turn off your geolocation, etc. Don't accidentally say where you are. That gives people the positive message of what they can do rather than just there's nothing. In terms of the local community, I'm from East Anglia, and I did have to say to the DPAA, they will know we're digging before we know we're digging. So they knew we were there. Obviously, we turn up trucks, welfare, etc., digging holes. They quite quickly came to find out what you're doing then. You know there's a plane here. It's actually over there. It's not over there. It is definitely here, but thank you. Once we engage them and explain, pretty much everybody, I'm going to say 99% of people, with a site like this, with modern repercussions and this kind of poignancy, is going to take it seriously when you say, please, please, don't go splashing this all over social media, telling everyone down the pub, mostly because the families of the guys who died here, who aren't accounted for, don't necessarily know what stage we're at. and we don't want them to get up loads of hope that we're going to find someone and they'll be able to have some closure, and then us have to dash it later because essentially you made that up, or it was Chinese whispers. Can you still say that? That it was hearsay that we'd found someone when we hadn't. So most people take that seriously from the beginning. Those who don't, you can have quite a clear and honest conversation. And anyone who asks you directly and says, well, have you found human remains yet? You can sort of say, I can't confirm or deny anything. These are the protocols within which I'm operating. I'm really sorry, but you're welcome to come and sit in the site cabin and we'll show you the research information we've got, and the information we can put publicly out there. And most people are quite satisfied with that, to be honest, like Richard. As far as I know, unless you're about to grab me afterwards and tell me otherwise, I didn't see any issues with it either.
Brilliant. Thank you. I'm sorry, I've got to stop you. We're out of time. We've run over slightly, but thank you all so much. 3 amazing projects. Thank you.